Buenas tardes, ladies and soy Joe, the conservative New Rican. See here with you on a beautiful Thursday. It's a little chilly, but it's still beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Listen, lines are going to be open today, yeah? 585-346-3000 or call toll free, yeah, if you're not in the 585 area code. 866-552-1009. Don't leave me here all by myself. You know, sometimes the airways can get lonely. I'm just kidding. I love what I do, ladies and gentlemen, but more importantly, I love dialogue. See, so give me that call. Hey, in case you didn't know, you know, those observances days, today is National Religious Freedom Day. Yeah, go figure. Huh? Now, what does that mean to some people? Well, probably nothing. Probably some people say, well, you know what, that's too much freedom because, you know, now we've got religious doctrine, blah, 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 all this stuff. And listen, stop, right? If that's what you believe. If, you know, if you're one of those individuals that understand in American values and understand that, you know, that religious freedom is probably foundational to everything, right? Having that ability to look up and say, you know, I love you. Or please protect me. When I say look up, check this out. See, I think that those that would probably be thinking that's an insignificant day, religious freedom, blah 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 blah, are probably those people that can't see beyond the government or themselves, right? That's a reality. And the thing is, if you talk to people like people who are like God doesn't exist or this whole religious thing or having faith in something that you can't verify or confirm with some type of empirical data, you know, just as you talk to them, you start realizing a couple of things, right? Either for whatever reason, sometime throughout their life, they've been hurt and that was somehow tied to someone who professed their faith in Jesus Christ. And then, of course, you know, negative feelings, all that. Or the individual is so arrogant that they can't see anything beyond themselves. I accomplished that becomes the tone for them. I did that other thing that we were talking about, right? No glory anywhere else. And you see that a lot. Where do you see that a lot? In politics. And the thing is this, I ain't going to lie to you. You see that amongst religious leaders, which is why I'm very careful to say that I don't really follow religion. I follow, on days like today, I give thanks to God because I live in a country that I can go on the airways and talk about Jesus Christ as the Son of God and our Lord and Savior. And I can promote and talk about things like, well, Religious Freedom Day. That's what that means to me. And remember, I'm pretty well traveled, right? And I've submerged myself in many of the cultures in the countries that I've been to, either, you know, usually because of the work that I did in the military, you know, and I can tell you, in the United States of America, at least until this point, right? January 16th, at least until this particular moment, we are the freest nation in the country. And see, and I believe that that's the kind of things, right, that they, and I'm saying they with air quotes because they can be whomever you think it is. Me, I think it's government in general. I don't think that they all get together and say, we're going to do this. I just think that there's people out there that are focusing on, well, on them instead of the higher power, the higher cause, and you, right? And that's where that's kind of where we've been talking really lately, right? Because you know when you look at what's going on around the world today, but yet you hear some of these cuts that I've shared with you. You hear the news, the magic show that Hocus Pocus did the other day. We'll talk a little bit about that too. And what about the buffoon's farewell address? I mean, these people speak with such a forked tongue that I mean, I'm surprised that their cheeks, I mean, maybe they are on the inside, aren't full with holes from the forked tongue that they use. I mean, check this out, right? We've got everybody on the left talking about, oh, we get that there's violence and blah, 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 blah. And we know then, and we'll deport and get rid of anybody that's here causing harm to people like you and me. Because that's not the reason why, right? According to them, the reason why we're letting people into this country. I mean, come on, 145 House Democrats, right? They voted against the bill. Against, let me rephrase or clarify that. Make sure you heard that. 145 Democrats in the House voted against a bill to deport immigrants who committed sexual assault. It says 158 Dems voted against the bill last year. So I guess there's some improvement, right? Or maybe it's that there's less Dems. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. See, yesterday, I want to continue on that conversation. See, because Hocus Pocus here in New York, man, I'm telling you, all these people, they see what's going on and they're capitalizing on language. Yesterday, the clips that we played talked about all the she refers to them as great accomplishments. I don't see how they were great accomplishments, but hey, who am I, right? But she sit there and talked about where she came from and all this other stuff, right? And she talked about how she's going to do free lunches and everybody, especially if you're black or brown, right? You need that government help because you can't make it any other way. Even though statistics, and we talked about this yesterday, showed, that's wrong. And if you look at rural America, which remember makes up, I believe it was like 96% or something of the land mass in this country, have proven that wrong. And the thing is, the politicians ignore rural America all the time. But what really gets me is that they sit there and they talk all this nonsense and they even share their stories, right? Like Hocus Pocus did. She talked about the spam and expired bread coming out of the freezer, which weird that she would say that, right? She touts how we are family, right? She's representing your family, right? And she wants kids to do well. Check this out, right? Here in this next cut, I'm going to play in a second, right? It's proof as to how she understands that the American dream is possible, that our young people need opportunities. And guess what? That's where jobs like delivering paper or waitress or at McDonald's come into play. I mean, she even talks about it. Bob, can we do cut one when you have a second? Factories were shutting down. Crime is out of control. Stores are closing and leaving. I read an article yesterday, actually, or maybe the day before, that said that Kohl's was closing a significant number of its stores. Kohl's department store. Of all stores, everybody shops there that I know of, and they're still closing. Right now, on that clip, she told you, I made 50 cents an hour. I worked hard because I wanted to save. But you know what really gets me? That is the most contradictory statement that she has said that contradicts everything else that she has said. Because remember, all these other policies that she's putting in place is intended, right? To make things so much better for our youth because they shouldn't have to struggle like she did. I mean, that's the bamboozle, right? Because that struggle is what brings you to your next step, right? As far as the large stores closing, remember, since she was a kid, since that situation she's describing and everything that changed happened under those policies of the left. So, who really? Bob, can we play cut two? Our laws must be stronger. If you listen to my show a couple shows ago, I brought up an article in the Rochester Business Journal that they had to do with this kind of same concept, right? Like poverty, right? And and the thing is this: if you recall, one of the points that article made was, "Well, policy is the solution." And I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, no. Policy is definitely the answer, not the solution." Now, what's crazy about it is that in the same tone, she's talking about how we got to establish opportunities for youth, but there's no room for homeless. We'll be right back right here in the Next Step Show, the Conservative New York Weekend on the Voice of Liberty stations. Sounds good. Oh, I'm used to it by now. A special thank you to our sponsors, see Flower City Collision, veteran owned, locally owned. See, over on East Henrietta Road in Henrietta, not too far from anywhere. Check it out. It's right off the highway. And listen, I've gotten to know Greg, who's a veteran, and his son Zach, right? These guys are phenomenal people, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you check them out. Make sure you check them out. Keith, thank you for calling the Next Step Show. Uh, I remember that. Interesting. I don't know his name, and unfortunately, the doctor's not with me today. What's the name you think it is? Maybe another caller will correct us. No, try it. It's okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, was it Freddie? Yeah. Wow. I'm sorry to hear about that. Yeah, they do. I appreciate the call. And listen, the Honorable Bob D'Angelo, see, listen, he let me know that that actor's name is Freddie Prinze, Prinze, right? That's a great question. Let me get to this caller. Let me think about it for a second, Keith, and I'll come back to that question. Armando, thank you for calling the Next Step Show. Gotcha. Sorry, Armando. Feel free to call back. So let me think about that for a second. Let me see. Why would a Hispanic that achieved a level of success that he was most likely heading to? The thing is this. I mean, because the answer to that question, Keith, can be probably anything. And I have to believe that it probably doesn't have anything to do with him being Hispanic. Possible, right? I mean, remember back then, gangs, all this other stuff. I mean, who knows? But the thing is this. I have noticed that within that industry in general, right? There seems to be a lot of people of black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. I mean, look at Robin Williams and others. I can't remember all their names off the top of my head. That just, you look at them, they're great. And depression seems to have been, and drug use, the predominantly factor. I'm going to have to assume that that's probably the case in Freddie's situation. But you know what, Keith? I'm going to look that up, and in some future show, I'll bring it up again. Right? Thank you, Bob. It looks like Joseph Feliciano did the same thing song, just in case you wanted to know that, Keith, and listeners. So, back to the topic on today, right? I showed you, right? Hocus Pocus and all those jokers on the left and the right? They know that we have to provide opportunities and accountability and discipline to our young people, not only at home, but as a culture, right? She said it, right? She didn't take the credit that was due to her and her policies for the destruction of business and the backbone of this country. But that's another show, right? But then she goes in to say that people shouldn't be feared to walk on the streets, right? All this in the same breath. And the thing is, again, it's all their policies. But the reason why I'm bringing these particular things up today, especially, is because as we go into the farewell address here shortly, right? These people's solution, I brought it to your attention the other day with the CARE Act in California, right? Where it's basically putting people in jail. What these jokers are doing now, pay attention, ladies and gentlemen, to what they're doing. Election cycles, right? You can see it. They're covering up their mess. And what do I mean by that? Well, look at the CARES Act, for example, right? What's being outlined by Hocus Pocus here in New York State. I'll give you an example when it comes to homelessness, right? We talk a lot about, hey, let's meet people where they're at. Hey, let's make sure that people have the things that they need and let them, because they deserve freedom too. Help, but freedom too. Right, we know that in New York State, because the governor, she established an emergency situation for this. Some of the mayors, local towns, I mean, there's money all over the place. She's forcing municipalities to agree to certain things in housing to get money. All this, all over the place, right? We know this. So tell me something. Because remember, much of the crime, at least recently, the heinous ones that we've seen, hasn't been just our homeless. They've been the illegals that she brought into New York City and continue to house. But at least one local official is looking up and saying, Hocus Pocus, Malik Evans, because remember, they tore down all these communities here. Bob, can we play cut 3? Listen, I'm not in any way suggesting that we should just let homelessness on the street. But sometimes, especially when we're lacking resources, keeping them in place is probably the safest thing to do because now we can work with them. We know where they are. We're able to provide the treatments. But not only did Malik Evans go ahead and clear all that up because, it's not pretty. Look, look at what Hocus Pocus is going to do or wants to do in her upcoming election and thereafter. Can we play that last clip? It's just compassion. That's it. So remember what we talked about the other day in regards to the CARES Act in California? This is the same thing, except she hasn't gone to the extent yet because, well, it hasn't happened yet. Now, some of you may say, oh, wait a minute, that'll never pass the legislature. But check this out, right? The assembly leader and the Senate leader said, well, maybe there's some credibility to that. Mira, we'll be right back right here in the Voice of Liberty. Check it out. Don't forget. Give us a call, 346-3000. Leave us a message. And hey, we'll be right back right here in the best station, best show in the world. In the face of failed measures and hollow promises, true leadership rises not by following the crowd, but by standing firm in what is right, protecting liberty, pursuing truth, and empowering others to reclaim their voice. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be bamboozled, right? Stand on your 2 feet and say, this life is mine and I'm going to control it going forward. Let's not forget the Bible even talks on this. See, Ephesians 6, verse 14 tells you, stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with a breastplate of righteousness in place, right? Ladies and gentlemen, don't be afraid. God's got your back. See, when you've got people like Hocus Pocus, see, and check it out, man. Right? Check it out. These people, and I say these people mostly on the left, these jokers, especially running the state, they're magicians, right? They know how to talk, they know how to bamboozle. I mean, listen to Harry Bronson. I've never ever seen a person that's able to turn a situation that he's created crap and make you believe that you like it. That's what these guys do. Listen, they prey, right, on our youth and our vulnerable, right? They talk about people like you and me, right, because we believe in making money. But the thing is, most of us that make money, we want to help others. That's why we do, right? We take care of our entrepreneurship first, right? Our own corporation, we build it up so that we can get to a point to say, little Johnny, little Janie, how can we help you? Right? How can we help you position yourself to take a step forward? Right? But they're not. These people, the hocus pocuses and the buffoon and the Malik Evans, they're all full of crapola. Right? Now, the thing is this. When they create this whole, whoa, when I was growing up, things were tough, but we made it work and it shouldn't be. All they're doing is creating victimhood mentalities, right? Right? Bamboozling you. I mean, check this out, right? In regards to this involuntary commitment into hospitals, remember, the government will define what the mental health illness is. And you heard it. The words mean everything. You heard what she said. She said, right? Somebody who is unwilling to take care of themselves. Now, mind you, remember COVID. We heard words very similar to that. But see, they couldn't push anything like that, like COVID camps. They tried, right? But who's going to argue, especially when like the California governor and Hocus Pocus, right? They bring the most extreme situation with the most family that they pushed into the most desperate situation. And that's the story that they spend hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on to create this perfect little image to substantiate it. I mean, once upon a time, even Carl Hasty, as I mentioned before break, was opposed to this. And this is what he said recently. He said, somehow the system is failing us as a state. Mind you, they've ran the state. They, as in that policy, in that ideology, has ran the state for nearly half a century, almost my entire life. And I've seen the decline, right? He goes on to say, and we need to find better ways in response, right? To Hocus Pocus's, basically, you don't agree with me, I'm going to put you in jail. Bet me that I'm wrong, because that is the workaround, right? This bill would grant police the authority to detain individuals and bring them to the hospital. I don't know. But what really gets me is this, and I promise I'll get off of Hocus Pocus. It's lunchtime. I know we're all like, oh, man, that woman makes me sick. And she does me. But there is a contingency, yeah? Of Republicans out there. I think it was something maybe 43, 44, somewhere around that number. It's been pretty consistent. Apparently, as a Republican caucus, we can't figure out how to break that hold, even though we've got some pretty smart, powerful people, influential people that are running this party. But hey, who am I? Again, I'll say, who am I? But at least one representative, right? Senate Minority Leader Rob Ord said, hey, listen, to just put this on the cops and say, this is our idea, now go do it, is unrealistic, right? I agree with Senator Ord on that. He says if they don't have the manpower to implement it, it's not going to happen. That's fluffy and pretty and you know what, very kind. But my question there is, and I get it, right? They can't really influence a lot of policy all the time at this point, right? All they can do is negotiate and find a common ground. But in a situation like this, why isn't the leadership on the Republican side saying loud, loud, absolutely not? We will find balance between this mental health crisis that the left has created and freedoms, but we will not take away the rights and freedoms, and we will not launch a full on attack on our homeless or the poverty. Because that's what they're doing. I mean, check it out. 20 advocacy groups have sent letters opposing this proposal. 20. Even the CEO of the Alliance for Rights and Recovery says our folks are being targeted. Even though Hocus Pocus says, "Oh well, that's not true. That's not true," right? Well, she's forgetting that in New York State, human right laws have been used to compel faith-based organizations to act in contrary to their belief. And remember, right? She's also trying to sell you on the fact that she's a family first. I love family. But yet, if you remember the last election, Proposition 1, she demonized all parents. And then she said the state knows better. And as a result, we're going to bamboozle everybody with language that doesn't even have anything to do with Prop 1, right? And they're going to say policies now require schools to affirm students' gender identities or their request to change their gender or have an abortion at late anything, right? All without parental control. Boy, that's really family oriented. Woman, hocus pocus, stay away from my family. I'm okay with that. My wife and I got it handled there. All we need you to do is just stay out of the way. How about that? And the thing is this, I guarantee that most, at least 99.9999% of the people listening to this show today are going to sit there and look up to Albany and say, absolutely. You do you, boo. Just stay away from my family. And really, the only solution you have to homelessness and poverty that you created in this great state, the Excelsior state of moving up where everybody seems to be moving down, unless you're rich and supporting their mantra, you're going to, you know what, whatever. But listen though, these jokers, like I've said a million times, they're all in sync. Seriously, like clockwork. Clockwork. If you believe in Satan, right, and God and all that, all that religious stuff, you could literally see Satan sitting in the back, right, coordinating and lining up different philosophies in people's heads, right? I mean, listen to what Biden says right when he kicks off uh, speech. Bob, when you have a second, who we are and who we should be. Now, I'll tell you, of that 17 minutes, there's one statement that he said that I almost fell off my chair with happiness and laughter. I'm like, woo hoo. And that's when he said, this will be the final address. Who we are, who we should be. Definitely not what they've tried us to be in the last 4 years. But do you see the similarity in talk? I mean, the mayor of Rochester just put out a statement again talking about how great things are in Rochester. Interesting. I mean, Biden is about the most un-American president in my lifetime that I have ever seen. And I'm not a history buff per se. I don't spend reading history books, but I know enough. But yet, this guy again, bamboozleness. They literally. I mean, can we play cut six? I mean, a new era of American possibility. Interesting statement coming from the buffoon or hocus pocus, or really the entire left. Tell me something. Again, 346-3000 area code 585. Leave me a message or talk to me on social media, right? Or toll free 866-552-1009. I'm curious to know. In the last 4 years, or even throughout the buffoon's tenure, his half a century in office, has he really been pro America? We'll be right back right here, see, on the Next Step Show with the conservative New Yorker on the Voice of Liberty. Hey, 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 we're going home. I remember singing that song the last day of basic training as we were marching or we were being marched, right? Because in basic training, they kind of march you around from barracks to the grounds where we did the graduation because it's like a half a day event there, and I'll tell you, I do miss those days. Hey, for Keith and listeners, Bob, thank you again for Freddie's name. I just did a little quick search, Keith, and I was right. Very typical with almost not all, but almost all um, famous people that were actors, things stuff that killed. It had to do, and that's what I saw. January 29th, at the age of 22, they reported that he has mental health struggles. As a result, he had significant substance abuse. They believe that the career pressures, especially as a it says here as a minority, that could have led to that. But apparently, he also had some personal issues. He was going through a divorce and some other stuff, and he shot himself um, in a moment of despair. Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick side note. Listen, suicide is a serious topic, and it should never be joked around. I applaud people like Dave Lippa who go out there and deal with our veterans with a Stop the 22. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? Pick up the phone and give me a call. If you ever find yourself in a situation where the alternative is talk to somebody, or cause harm to yourself, because once you pull that trigger, jump off a chair, jump off a bridge, or whatever it is that you're using, that's permanent. Ladies and gentlemen, never, ever ignore somebody that says, I need your help. And the thing is this, we can do it. Why? Well, because we're just compassionate people. It's just who we are. We're human beings who believes that we got to help other human beings. That's why that whole statement and the whole concept of incarcerating someone involuntarily just because they're deemed by some power to be, without even, I mean, you're just going to exasperate situations. But whatever. Back to our buffoon in the White House who claims that he's American made. Can we play cut 7 for a second? Or these people, if I were to try to explain this to you, I mean, you guys will probably believe it, but to somebody who doesn't really pay attention, the hypocrisy behind these people's statements, although he said something very clear there. See, this is the political ideology that I'm talking about. Well, actually, he said a couple things very clear there. One, we are all created equal. Absolutely. God, country, family, first of all. Second of all, what is it? Life, justice, and the pursuit of happiness for all. All that stuff is true. But what the part that he's forgetting, though, the part that he's not mentioning in this statement that it's been, and it's just kind of like the tone has been this for the last 4 years. Life, liberty, justice for all, so long as you don't disagree with our nonsense. Right? That's the American, all-American president that he is. Now, listen, he talked about democracy because they don't like to talk about representative governments that we have in this country. See, because if they started really promoting that, then they get held accountable. They don't want to do that. But he said democracy, it must be imposed. Listen to the words that these people use. Right? That's not it's not happenstance. And when you impose a majority rule type of law and you're saying this is the way it is, guess who's the majority? Compare and contrast to what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, because us, what is it that Trump said? They're not coming after him. They're coming after us. He's just in the way. And I think that this recent election kind of proved that. You can't pull the same trick twice, right? So they definitely couldn't pull the nonsense they pulled in 2020. They sure couldn't. Anywho, this guy, I'll tell you. He talks a good game, though. Can we play cut 8? I'll give you about a second or two here to kind of, recompose yourself uh, from. You probably lost your lunch after hearing that. Respect for the institutions is absolutely something that this buffoon or his administration, respect for the rule of law. Come on, 145 Dems voted against getting rid of people that are killing our fellow Americans. And then to boot, he starts off his like they all do, right? They start off with this whole my fellow Americans. I like we're buddies. No, you're killing Americans. And you're going to sit there and talk about having a balance and having respect for an office that you have literally defecated on for the last 4 years? Man, please. Can we please play cut nine? So, you know how we talk about less than 1% of America really kind of buys into some of the special interest stuff? We'll call it that, right? Some of the nonsense coming out. You do understand that that farewell was intended for them, right? It absolutely was. And the thing about it, see, again, this guy, these people, they're not dumb. They're absolutely, positively, 1,000,000% far away from being dumb. When you use terms like, well, we the people. Oh boy, that makes me feel hard. It just makes me feel really good. We use those terms on a regular basis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you, time flies surely when you're having fun. I'm going to have to continue with the rest of the cuts tomorrow, but stay tuned, B, because as this guy says farewell, right? As this guy sits there and says, I love America and I'm American made. And we'll explore this a little bit more tomorrow when he sits there and says, I wish the next administration success in that same tone, kind of like hocus pocus, right? And her, I know what it takes and I understand the value behind it, right? But I want you dependent. See, he's doing the same thing. Oh, we wish Trump success, but I have a concern. I mean, they say this in the same tone, already pitching the next administration, right? Like they're the bad guys. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. Leadership is the beacon that guides me. Say this, I haven't forgotten. For it's through selfless service that I illuminate the way for others to achieve their own greatness. Mira, be a leader, be a leader, be a leader. Y no te olvide every day at noon aquí, La Conservative New Yorker on the Next Step Show. And don't forget, always say it. God bless these United States of America. And hey, be that voice of liberty.